Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm James Hennessy from Reptile Zoo. There's nobody here for the Kenny tonight, is there?
Yeah.
This is good. So I'll try and match Michelle's energy. It should be 3.5 hours. So it could be a little bit harder. So I don't know if anybody here been down to the zoo down to us? I think a few of you have. A couple of you. Okay, excellent. So I'll describe first, what we are and what we do, and then more in relation to what we do directly with conservation. When it comes to zoos and animals in captivity, when it comes to the public's perception of it, what actually happens and what is perceived to happen can be two quite different things. So we'll explain a little more about that. So the zoo itself, I opened the zoo in 2006. I started off with a 2,000 square foot building, quite small. There was about 30 exhibits at the time. I think we had about 60 animals. We've increased it now to 6,000 square feet. We've got 50 exhibits. We've got over 50 species, about 200 animals there. So it's actually, for a small zoo, it's actually quite large. We've got as many species as most of the bigger zoos have. We're licensed by the Department of the Environment, which is quite important. It's a European zoo directive, so you can't just open a zoo, as much as most people would like to just open a zoo. You often hear people talk about, I've got loads of animals, they can just open the zoo. Unfortunately, you can't. You've got to go through quite a few hoops and jump over quite a lot of hurdles to open the zoo. So the European Zoo Directive came in 2004, I think. And now that's all zoos all across Europe. The idea is that all zoos will conform to one standard. So it's not just a matter of having animals behind bars. So that's kind of what I'm going to explain a little bit more about. Some of the stuff we have in the zoo, a large part of what we do is very interactive. It'll be a little bit different to your normal, to Dublin Zoo or to Fall Island or to London Zoo. The interaction is quite a big part of what we do. And there's a specific reason for that when it comes to reptiles. I'll explain a bit more about that as we go on. So first of all, to explain conservation of zoos, explain what a zoo is, I suppose, first. What comes to mind when you hear the word zoo? The first thing, it brings up different images for different people. For some people it will kind of bring you back to your childhood, maybe with your parents going around Dublin Zoo, you get these nice memories. For other people, not such a nice image. We get this image of animals caged up, cold, empty cages behind bars. And this is the thing that we're trying to get away from. Zoos, the idea of a zoo, the first actually recorded zoo comes from about 3,500 BC. So it's 5,500 years ago. It was the first time that a recorded zoo has ever been kind of documented. That was in Egypt. We can, as a species, humans, I think we have this kind of need to make connections with animals, be it to put them in cages, to work alongside them, to keep chickens for eggs, to feed wild birds. We just have this need to actually either be with, work with, or be part of animals. Sometimes that can be misconstrued, and has been over centuries. People generally have an interest in animals. The word zoo itself first came about in about 1850 in London. It originally came from the zoological gardens. And that's where the word zoo hopped from. And at that time, animals would have been a little more than an animal put into a cage for people's amusement to come and see, just for our entertainment. Now, again, that's kind of our way to make a connection with these species. It was, looking back now, it's easy for us to look back at it and kind of, that's horrific. That's horrible. How could we do that as a species? We look back and we think, what do we do? We stuck animals in a cage. We sat there and we looked at them just for our amusement. But at the same time, education wasn't quite as prevalent. Your average person back in 1850, on previous slide, obviously, there wouldn't have been the sharpest tool in the box. So, you're looking at animals in the box. You want that connection with them. You're not quite sure what the animal's needs, this environment. You're putting your own feelings onto the animal, anthropomorphism and all that. We just didn't know any better. You can't knock it completely. It is a natural process. Over the years, we have learned that it's not right to keep them like this. These days, we tend to keep them in much more naturalistic environments. This is one of our caiman museum in Kenny. These days we're trying to recreate the animal's natural habitat. We're trying to make it live in somewhere where it naturally would live in the wild. We're trying to keep everything exactly the same as it would in the wild. And the reason we can do that now is all the mistakes we've made, over the centuries gone past. As time went on, we realized that animals needed more things. And even keeping them in captivity for those last few centuries, we've learned so much about those species that we can now go forward with, keep them in better conditions in captivity, and further on, keep them in better conditions in the wild, and actually preserve their habitat and where they live, where they're from. There's two ways specifically that zoos are involved in conservation. The first is in situ. Is anybody familiar with that term at all? That's good. One person good. Okay, so in situ conservation. So what we look at with in situ conservation is basically you're preserving an animal in its natural environment and its environment around it. That's in situ conservation. Modern zoos are going to play a pivotal role in situ conservation. Now this is what a lot of the public don't see. So you're going to a zoo, you're seeing an animal in a cage, you're thinking, how is that helping the animal in the wild? There's a couple of different ways to do it. Specifically to us, so I'm not going to relate everything back to what we do in Reptile Village. So specifically to us, we're involved in in situ conservation in two specific ways. One is funding projects. So it's simply, having animals on display for people to come and see them. People come in, they pay an entrance fee. That money goes to obviously maintaining the animals, paying for staff, and so on and so forth. But it also goes putting money into projects abroad. So we can do things, we can buy equipment. This is a project we're involved in Guatemala. So it's simple things like weighing scales, laptops, GPS coordinate readers, and things like that. So we get involved for surveying. So we supply equipment for that. That money has to come from somewhere. Unfortunately, conservation isn't very profitable. Well, usually it's profitable. In some cases, actually, as we were discussing earlier on with venoms, in the case of some venoms, conservation can be profitable because we can use the venoms, and the webs, as you were saying, that we can develop stuff that we can use from. In this case, big industry will fund certain conservation projects, but the majority of projects, there's no money getting back from. So we've got to fund it somehow. So zoos are one of the main funders for projects like this. So it's one of the things we do. So we've some of the stuff we supplied. We supplied camera traps, laptops for projects in India, field equipment, biometric data equipment, safety equipment for Guatemala, and equipment for DNA collection in Venezuela. So it's just some of the stuff. This stuff here is like something as simple as that. These gloves, these are what's called hex armor gloves. It just looks like a pair of gloves. You go to the shop to buy them, and they're €250. Sounds simple, but again, these are bite-proof gloves. So your herpetologist, entomologist in the field wants to go and work with venomous, dangerous animals. Something like that is invaluable. The amount of extra work you can do with something as simple as a pair of gloves, it's phenomenal. So little things like that, grabs, hooks, these are measuring tubes, various and so on. One of the other ways then that we're involved in conservation is the supply of personnel as opposed to equipment, both specialised and non-specialised. So when we're involved in a project, you can have all the equipment in the world, have the most pristine areas to survey. If you've got nobody to survey it, it's kind of pointless. So somebody's actually got to go out there and do the work. So that's some of the work that we do. So that's, as I said, specialised and non-specialised. So in this case, this is specialised. We train, well, I train specifically Guatemalan governmental staff for handling venomous snakes. And what that means is if the venomous snake is found in a farm, in a grain co-op, in the school, instead of just getting hacked up like it normally would, they can call a local person or somebody who's been trained by us can then go and rescue that snake and release it back into the world. Something as simple as that. It also means that surveys that we're conducting, that when we're not there, we can set local people up, we can train them to continue the surveys and do more work. We also actually, a lot of the projects we're involved in, specifically this one in Guatemala and another one in India, they're volunteer funded. So people like yourselves, who have been interested in the animals, interested in working on this, you basically go, you pay your way along, Your money goes to help maintain the project. You get trained in the field. You go and you help, survey animals, collect data, compile the data later on. It's invaluable for yourselves as volunteers, but it's also invaluable to the project because it gives us manpower to get it done. So that's quite important. Actually, if anyone's interested in stuff like that later on, just ask me, because we do quite a lot on that front. That might sound as well like the ideal job, and some people are thinking, how many people here are doing zoology or various, or mostly? Okay. So it might sound and seem like the perfect job. There's a couple of reasons that you have to look at that twice. Well, yes, that is or is not the perfect job. Obviously, there's the whole fact that you're working in the field. We work on one project in Arunachal Pradesh, which is a little Indian state between Burma and China. It's quite remote, quite difficult to get to. Conditions are pretty rough, but that's fine, and most people can cope with that, that's grand. The issue where most people will have, which doesn't come to the front until you actually get there, is the ethics side of it. So you really have to come to terms with sustainable use. Things in the Western world, we're quite privileged. We have, unfortunately, we have the luxury of choice in the Western world. You can stand there, you can sit there, you can go out for a meal, you can decide, I don't think it's right to eat flesh, so I'm going to become a vegetarian. I don't think it's right to wear fur or leather, so I'm not going to wear skin, I'm not going to buy skin products, fur products. And we have that luxury to make that decision. When you go, if you want to go work in this area, and you work in the field with these people and with this equipment and stuff, actually, there's some stories about it. Yeah. So this will be your typical tribal member in the state in Arunachal Pradesh. These guys are wearing hornbills, the birds. They'll cut the horns off hornbills, they wear them in their head, they weave them into their hair, and it's a sign of it's a status and a symbol for them. And that's something you've got to work alongside, and you have to accept that they do that. We're going into an area where you're quite high in the mountains. You can't grow any rice because it's too mountainous, it's not wet enough to grow rice. So you ship rice up from the villages. This could be a 20-hour drive in a truck to ship rice up. So the cost of rice is 3 times the price of the cost of rice from the local village. There is already no way of making money for them yet, but they don't have jobs as such to live off the land. So you're working alongside these people, and these people hunt. So you're working alongside them. They eat everything that moves in the forest. So it's quite tough. You're there with them. You're trying to survey animals in the area, and they're eating them as you're surveying them. Now, it sounds almost ridiculous. And to a point it is. Some of it is education. You're teaching them that, some things can replenish themselves, some things can't. And they've got their families there. You can actually see the hornbill just in this guy's head up here. Is using their amazed rare snake hooks and things. They tend to use machetes. Much easier to catch a snake with a machete than a snake hook. So we're teaching them, that that's obviously there's other ways to do them. Not every snake is venomous. There are ways around moving snakes without having to hack it up. Likewise, we can't sit there and say, you can't eat all these animals. And then they'll turn to you and say, well, we can't eat all these animals, and my kids are going to die. You can't turn to say to that woman, don't kill that. You can't eat that. She goes, well, listen, we'll literally die if we don't eat it. So you can't just walk in. So you have to be ethically prepared, to find other ways for them where they have to eat meat. They have to wear fur. It's not that simple, unless you can find other solutions. So that's always an issue, especially when we've got volunteers and students who come in, and you come in with a very, what's the word, kind of idealistic view as to what conservation is about, but on the ground it's quite different. So if it is something you're interested in getting involved in, that's something you have to keep in mind. Another point to that, with that type of conservation, things like saltwater crocodiles in Australia. Up to 1960s, I think it was, saltwater crocodile was critically endangered, almost wiped out, mostly from hunting. What their solution to the problem was to start ranching and farming crocodiles. Now, most people are horrified. The species is endangered. It's almost extinct. Why would you ranch? Why would you farm for meat and skin? It's almost gone. So what they did in doing this was they took a certain amount of eggs from nests, they still do, from the wild animals, a controlled, sustainable amount, so the population was able to continue. People then no longer needed to hunt or kill the animals in the wild because they had their own local source where they were breeding and maintaining themselves on farms. As part of their licensing agreement, they would have to release babies back into the wild, a certain percentage of the ones that they'd hatched themselves. So not only had they stopped hunting wild populations, they were now starting to replenish wild populations. You know, so before you know it, saltwater crocodile came back to the edge of extinction. Right up to the point now where it's almost become a pest in Australia. And I'm sure you still hear on the news, people, swimmers getting taken by salties. It's quite common. So it's gone all the way from being a critically endangered animal to being a pest animal, simply because we started farming it and sustainably using it. You know, so again, something just to keep in mind that it's not as simple as we can't eat this animal, we can't wear this animal. That doesn't work, unfortunately. It'd be great if it did. It's a pity it doesn't, but unfortunately it doesn't. So that would be in situ conservation. So as you go into the field. So as I said, the three projects that we're involved in at the zoo at the moment, we've been involved in quite a few. One is Guatemala. What we're doing in Guatemala is we're surveying a specific area. Nobody's been in this area before to survey. So we're the first herpetologists in there. We've been in there for the last 3 years. We go over about 3 times a year. And we bring students like yourselves from the UK, from Ireland, from the States, from Australia. They come over. We train them for the first couple of days. Then we set them off in the field, surveying quadrants of different sex. We do, we're training with venomous handling, just things like bullfrogs, which is the fur lance. Lots of these tarantulas everywhere, quite fun. In your bed, usually. So that's that. Well, yes, that's our main project here, is surveying. We're also doing a market recapture study on some of the snakes and crocodiles. There's more or less crocodiles in the area. So we're capturing the snakes, capturing the crocs. We tag them and we mark them. We re-release them. And then, every 3 months, we're continually doing that. Sometimes we're getting recaptures, and we're able to monitor their growth, and we're slowly building pictures to how healthy or unhealthy that ecosystem is, because at the moment we don't know, because nobody's done any surveying on it. So that's one of the projects. The other project I said is in this place, where these people are from, which is Arunachal Pradesh. It's an incredible area. It's just between Burma and China. It's an Indian state, but it's way over. People don't even look. You can see that they're not looking. Totally different. What we're doing there is we're mostly collecting venomous snakes and milking them for venom. And the reason we're doing that is India is a huge continent. There's one antivenom that they use for the 4 main species of venomous snakes there. It was originally developed from the species in the south of India. So when it's used for the species in the north of India, even though they're the same species, they're so genetically different from the ones in the south that the antivenom doesn't quite work. So when these people are bitten, even when they've got antivenom, they do tend to still get a lot of fatalities. It doesn't work so well. So we're milking snakes for venom. Obviously, we catch them, we milk them for venom, we release them back to the spot we found them. We're also marketing them and surveying while we're doing that. That antivenom is then going to the pharmaceutical companies and trying to develop new, better antivenoms to try and help these people. And when you're working alongside them and they know that you're working with them to help them, making medicines for them, they in turn help. It also changes their attitude to the way they work with the animals in the world as well. That's quite important. The third project we're working on at the moment is a place called ANET, A-N-E-T, and that's the Andaman and Nicobar Environmental Team. I know everybody familiar with the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, probably not. It's a tiny little group of islands, hit pretty badly by the tsunami. They're just off the coast of Thailand and Burma. They're ecologically, they're unique, they're fantastic group of islands. But if you're ever interested in any kind of marine life and stuff like that, they usually went to school diving and stuff. So we go over and help them with things like venomous snakes. There's a specific cobra, the Andaman cobra, only found there nowhere else. The Andaman crate, not found anywhere else. So we help with the surveys on that. And while we're there, we help with the surveys like in sea turtles. I do a lot of scuba and stuff. It's great fun too. So there is, it's obviously my favourite part of conservation is being able to do that kind of stuff. That's the in situ conservation. Then the ex situ conservation. This would be the conservation that most people will be familiar with. So ex situ, obviously it's preserving the animal outside of its natural habitat. If you kind of think about that for a minute, that's it's it's not the easiest kind of concept to get your head around. You know, you get to relate it to what we have. You know, you have to ask yourself the question, how does keeping, we've got 2 big American alligators, how does keeping a big American alligator in the zoo preserve any of its crocodilian cousins in the world? How does that work? And this is what most zoos are their main role is. Like all animals live in modern zoos. And the same modern zoos because if you go back to the 1850s, you know, there's still zoos around the world, unfortunately, that still look like that with that polar bear cage up. That still does happen, unfortunately. But all modern zoos, the way it's deemed at the moment is that any species that you have in captivity is seen as an ambassador for its species. So what that means is you've got an animal in captivity, people come and see it, and so that animal is then key to linking that member of the public back to those animals in the world. You know, if I could stand here all day, or you could go to a million lectures, somebody could stand here and he could tell you, you know, about the plight of this, the plight of that, this animal is going extinct, this ecological area is going to collapse. I know everybody would be concerned. You walk out the door and you forget. You know, it affects us, but it doesn't affect us enough. You know, you open something on social media, you read some awful story in the news, you open something else and it's gone straight out of your head, you know, it's gone straight away. So the way to kind of combat that, and which is why we have to get a little bit closer with reptiles, is that having them as ambassadors for your species. When somebody comes face to face with an animal, you see that tiger cub in a zoo, and then you find out that tigers are becoming endangered or habitats being destroyed in the world, then suddenly you do care because you've now seen the victim of that horrible story. And this is how we make the link with the public to the animals in the world. You know, something that's happening 2,000 miles away doesn't seem to affect us that much, so we have to bring it closer, and that's what zoos do. You know, so like things like crocodilians, you know, the fact that they're, you know, the gharial, which is a crocodilian in India, you know, where every year you get hundreds floating belly up from pollution. You know, skins are being hacked up. You know, animals are being hacked up in the world for skins. You know, I can tell you all that. You know, the effect it has on you might not be everlasting, but if you take an animal out and you see it, and then suddenly you realize it's this animal's cousins in the world that are getting hacked up, they're floating or dying from pollution or whatever it is, then suddenly it becomes, you know, it becomes real, and this is what helps kind of save them. That's what that would be the kind of strongest part of ex situ. One of the other ways that we deal with ex situ is with stud books. So it's not enough, you know, it's not enough for us to keep, and well, actually, we're speaking on ethics. Every zoo, every modern zoo, every licensed modern zoo has an ethics committee. So every decision we make of every animal is run through a committee. And it's not just people in the zoo, there's members outside of the zoo who are part of the committee. Like on the Canadian Reptile Village, we regard a local shop owner or on our committee. So they have a say, so they are the opinion of the public. So we don't just kind of make, you know, decisions off our back. We do actually run them through an ethics committee. And every zoo does this. But yeah, from an ethical point of view, it's not enough just to have an animal in captivity, just to make that connection with the animals in the wild. Regarding stud books, so what most zoos are is we're kind of like a genetic backup of animals. So as they deplete in the world, we've got species that are genetically healthy, they're not inbred, they're not hybridized, they're genetically similar to specific areas in the world. So as they disappear in the world, then we have ones that can be released back into the world to build populations back up again. And that's quite important to have that backup. How many of you lost your projects on your laptops from crashing and not have it backed up? You know, it's as important as that. If it collapses, it's almost impossible to replace. So that's a quite important one of the zoos have, is to have that there as a backup. And that's quite strictly controlled. We have like a stud book keeping. For instance, Komodo dragons. The stud book keeping for Komodo dragons is in Chester Zoo. So they control all of the. Oh no, sorry, is in Barcelona. Is the stud book keeping for Komodo dragons. So any movement of any Komodo dragon, any breeding of Komodo dragons, it's all has to go back to that stud book keeper, and he decides how healthy the local population is. You know, how healthy the wild population is, and see are they needed. So we don't breed unnecessarily either. I don't know if you hear about the story about the giraffe in Denver, or Denver, somewhere like that they hacked up because it was surplus to requirements. So, you know, if stud books should follow properly, animals shouldn't be circus. They should be bred when they need to be bred, not bred just for the sake of it. So that's quite another point. That was a bit of a media disaster. That was a bit of a, in general, just a horrible thing to do. So that's the school books. The other side then, for breeding. Healthy animals. This is the Fijian banded one. That's obviously found in Fiji. Critically endangered because it's specifically only found in Fiji. The population is healthy, but they're critically endangered because something like a tsunami or an oil spill, whatever, natural catastrophe, volcano eruption, could literally wipe the species out. This animal here is the one we have. Unfortunately, this animal has come from the pet trade. And what that means is it's come from the original 8 animals that were smuggled from Fiji in the 60s. There's now a collection in pet trade of about, I think there's about 8 or 10,000 animals that have come from those specific food. So there's a lot of inbreeding going on. So generally, that animal is not suitable for re-release back into the wild. So and that's why we keep stuff with this. You have to be sure of stuff like that. So you look for, gorgeous animal, pristine animal, Ceres, poison one or poison bear frogs, then a great Azurius. And again, that's come from the pet trade also. They're fantastic looking and healthy. They're great for the, for the ambassadors to their species, for use for that. But for skullbuck boys or for genetic backup, so that's quite strictly controlled, fortunately. Finally then, when it comes to ex situ conservation, trying to keep them exactly as they are in the wild, so trying to recreate their habitat exactly the same as the habitat in the wild. What that allows us to do is allows us to study them and to learn exactly what their needs are. So we discover what their needs are both in captivity and in the wild. So an animal like this is a crocodile one. These are found in Papua New Guinea. These are incredibly secretive. We've got a cousin of his, actually went to go in the wild. He's a friend of his, so it's not a friend, it's quite aggressive. So these are really, really secretive, really hard to find in the wild. Even the local people where they live rarely come across them. So to study that animal, somebody's got to live in Papua New Guinea. They've got to try and find one first. They're quite intelligent as well. So you won't get too close to them. So just by you being there, they're not acting naturally. So in captivity, we can follow their lives continuously, and we can see what they're actually doing, and we can't see what they're doing in the wild. And then this helps us to build a bigger picture as to how we can help them in the wild. So all the research that goes on in zoos. I get people like yourself, students, who come down for 3 months and they'll spend their time studying animal, they'll do a master's or thesis on an animal. That information isn't just written in paper and forgotten about. That information is used. When we need to do something in the world, to take a conservation measure, we'll take all the publications that have been done on animals in captivity, and we can relate them back to the animal in the world, hopefully help say that, or we can possibly discover what makes them go extinct in the first place. So that's where we work. So that's kind of that kind of sums up what most zoos will do with regards to conservation. And to kind of drill that point home, we've got 2 guys with us. We want to get you a little bit closer. We're getting close to some spiders as well. We're going to take some spiders out too. So before we take the animals out, any questions, guys?
Would you get many reptiles you thought that are surrendered to you by people who just adopt them as pets and they can't look after them in the world?
Yeah, we try. We get offered a lot of pets that can't look after. Again, the issue with that, the likes of animals that are endangered in the world, and we can teach people about it. We can take them if we can. We don't like taking them because genetically there's issues. A lot of snakes kept in captivity. Burmese pythons would be a prime example. Really common. There's millions of them in captivity. They're critically endangered in the world. Unfortunately, all the ones in captivity have been so inbred to get various colour morphs that they're genetically much weaker than their wild cousins. So if we release any of those back into the wild, we'd actually be releasing a genetically weaker strain into the wild, which would put down the risk. So we try not to. Unfortunately, in Ireland, there's no restaurant to go, so we end up having to take them a lot of time. Ethically, we have to make kind of it's a tough call to make. Yes.
So what's the consequence of releasing genetically weak animals into the wild?
Well, again, I'll go back to Burmese pythons just to try and make it understandable. Albinos, you ever seen the famous Britney Spears snake, the white and yellow snake? That's a Burmese python. So that's an albino. So albinos naturally occur in the wild, but they don't last. Their percentages are quite low. They get a baby albino python like this size. It's bright white. It's in it's on the forest floor. It gets eaten straight away. You release an animal that's carrying a stronger albino gene or few of them, the rate of albinism increases, so the rate of predation increases. So they don't make it to adulthood when they die on. So it has that kind of effect. We also see quite a lot with hybrid, with inbreeding and that. It's kind of like dogs, purebred dogs, thoroughbred horses, and there's other genetic defects that come along with the colour mutations. So with Burmese pythons, we'll often see respiratory illness as a genetic issue. So they get to about 4 years old, they get respiratory illness, and then you kill them. So again, we don't want to release that as genetic illness into the world.
Just what you're saying about animals being ambassadors, I can see families going into places and what you're saying about walking off and getting in that shore and going to their head and stuff, but I don't see the board of directors for a development company coming in and seeing their ways. So how far does that really?
No, that's a good point. Well, I'll tell you how it works. It's a good point. If you take that on further, that family, you got to remember the logging industry, logging not specifically, but you got to remember the industries that work, that live off, or pollute, or end up killing these animals. These rely on customers. These rely on selling their product. So that family are the customers. So when that family goes on holidays and somebody tries to sell them a turtle shell that's shaped like a guitar, or somebody, they're buying something with palm oil, something that's made with palm oil, and they've learned at the zoo that it's affecting an orangutan that they just come face to face with. So then suddenly they stop buying that product that uses palm oil. So that's how it has a kind of knock-on effect. So it's not directly the company because they're nothing, obviously if there's money in it, you have nothing to argue with people, there's money to be made. So you've got to hit it at source. So if you get rid of the need for that, which is the family who would want to use it, and sustainably use something else, and you can tell them, give them that option. So it's a good option, so give them an option. Then hopefully they'll make the ethically correct decision.
So do you have information as well, kind of awareness?
Yeah, we do. So when we're taking an animal out, we're not just going to take it out and say, here's an animal, touch it, play with this, and then they go off, oh, play with it. So we also sneak it in. Yeah, and that's what's actually happening a lot of the time. But we're really subtly, we're also sneaking in a conservation message. You're trying to throw in the odd. It's quite a kind of tactful skill that you kind of get the hang of after a while. But you're kind of drawing people's attention at specific parts of the animal or about its habitat, and then you're kind of slipping them the education with them ways and making it they're having fun. Well, they're having fun. They're also getting serious in the cost as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the stillbooks for each animal are kept so carefully. How could the giraffe
To be honest, I don't know.
as well?
I don't know. There's my honest answer to that. How that happened. It shouldn't have happened. There is a bureaucratic issue as well. And obviously, as organisations get bigger, with the zoo world, there's various organisations within the zoo world. One is BIASA, which is the British and Irish Association of Zoo and Bird. The second is EASA, which is the European Association. Then you have WASA, the World Association, and you have American Association, and so on. So there's different grades, different committees and things like that. Sometimes things can get lost. Now I don't know is that what happened specifically. That shouldn't have happened. And I know that there are, and as far as I know, there were other zoos that were willing to take their animal. But it was obviously when they had their ethics meeting, the board of directors on that specific zoo, it was just a mess. It was stupid and cruel. I don't know.
So there isn't one person worldwide that would keep a giraffe?
There would be there is an EASA studbook for giraffes. And again, the studbook, obviously the giraffe was allowed to breed. I'm not sure how old the giraffe was, but it may be pre kind of organised studbook times. So if that giraffe is 20 years old, 20 years ago, the foresight, and still looks might have been as good as it is now, should we say. We might be seeing the effects of just bad planning 20 years ago. Possibly now, I'm kind of guessing on that. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't happen. And one of the reasons we have in our ethics committee, we've got 2 members who aren't members of the zoo, the shopkeeper or guard. They have no connection to the zoo whatsoever and no animal experience. So when decisions like that have to be made, that we take the public's opinion on board. It's quite important. And that zoo, I think it was Denmark, was it? That zoo should have done the same thing. And I would assume we did the same thing. Our accountants would have done the same thing. When they get inspected there next year, I'm sure that's going to be an issue for them. Sorry.
You mentioned at the start an EU directive of the zoos, and I was wondering how much does that emphasise in situ conservation? Or does
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot, yeah. The inspection, to explain how the inspection works, is that we're inspected every year. We give a pre-inspection report. In our pre-inspection report, we have to document all of our in-situ and ex-situ conservations for the past 3 years. So even if we do something once, it doesn't matter. We have to be continually developing. So it's quite a big part of it. And all the inspection, our pre-inspection form is about that thick, and all that thickness, about half of that is in-situ conservation. So it's quite important. And again, it's unfortunate that the public don't realise that, don't get to see it. And again, when we're handling stuff, we try and tell people about it. It's something they don't realise is actually happening. It is quite an integral part of what zoos are. Like 20 years ago, things have changed.
Just going back to what you were saying earlier about studying the animals that behave differently around humans, could you comment further on that, like how that works, or how confident you can be about studying these animals that are ex situ?
Oh, to do ones in captivity?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. With the in the wild, so say we'll take that crocodile monitor picture I had up there. In the wild, crocodile monitor is very secretive. If it's mating, or if it's female about to lay eggs, or there's eggs about to hatch, if a human suddenly appears where there's never been a human before, that animal is not going to lay eggs where it will lay eggs. It's not going to mate when it should have mated, at a specific time of year. In captivity, we'll try and recreate the natural habitat as what we think we know, be it humidity, rainy season, summer, winter, depending on where your animal's from. We'll try and make our educated guesses, and then what does happen is the animal reproduces in captivity, and we can get to see it, which we wouldn't get to see in the wild. So then we know this, we can obviously relate this back to what's happening in the wild that we haven't seen. So that's how that kind of works. Obviously it's not perfect, we would prefer it to be in the wild, but you're not going to be able to afford staying popular games for 3 years, and no one's going to fund that project. There's no money in crocodile monitors. So that's the kind of thing that unfortunately we have to compromise and learn captivity. Obviously we would prefer to learn what's going to work, it's just not feasible. Some stuff as well, some species will be fossorial, so they'll burrow, so they'll all be done underground. So in captivity we can create an underground exhibit, and it's often done with glass fronts, and you can fill in, you can actually see what's happening, we don't have to dig up and so stuff like that as well. Incubation temperatures for nests. Reptiles, when reptiles lay eggs, they don't incubate their own eggs, so they generally lay eggs in piles of rotting vegetation, and the temperature in there has been shown to be kept at about 0.5 degrees Celsius. Just from the vegetation rotting there, they get the nest perfect. You don't want to go and disturb a wild animal that's endangered. You don't want to disturb their nest. But we can do it in captivity in a controlled environment, and we know exactly what's going on. And then, if suddenly babies aren't hatching in the wild for some reason, we might be able to relate it back to something we've seen in captivity and can help the species. Anything else? Happy enough?
What were the main challenges in starting this kind of zoo learning? What was the reception from the public?
Starting it. From the public, actually, fine. Funny enough. Ireland's pretty good at that, usually.
So there's no one kind of fighting about venomous animals or whatever?
No, when it comes to in the zoo, we've got a lot of venomous things. And due to the license, or health and safety, it has to be 100%. Public perception, a snake is a snake. So it could be a completely harmless corn snake, or it could be a deadly Western Roundup rabbit snake. They still think it's the same thing. So we didn't actually have that issue. A snake was a snake. So once they were happy, everyone was above board. We didn't see any problems. sorry, the legal side of it, obviously, is the licensing of that. That was a lot of work, and so it should be. We've gone organised.
We're seeing a lot of the zoos and like how they're still kind of, I suppose, ones that would be seen as unethical. So where do they get their animals from? Because obviously you're not going to send your animals there.
Yeah.
So like where do they get them from?
Private dealers, pet trade. And again, when we're taking animals out in captivity in the zoo to show people, we teach them about the pet trade as well. Pet trade is good and bad. Again, it's our connection with animals. We need to, as I explained, as a species, we need to have this connection with animals. So I'm not going to say that pet trade is awful and shouldn't be given animals in captivity, but there are certain segments of the pet trade, specifically with reptiles, like the inbreeding and stuff like that, where we can teach people about it. But the pet trade is huge, especially with reptiles and exotics. There's a lot of money in exotics as well, which is kind of, especially in Ireland since the Celtic tiger collapsed. You could actually now go to the UK and buy a lion for £600. I could actually pull a message up on my phone and I could show you where you get a lion for £600. That's in the private trade, not the zoo trade. So if the zoo didn't fit, and so if somebody wants to set up a non-registered zoo or a kind of a backstreet zoo, it's quite easy done. And that's worth it. And that's again some of the education side that we do. It's in a way it's ridiculous. Like we've the zoo for 11 years ago. I assisted taking 7 Bengal tigers and an apartment in Dublin. We brought them to a zoo in Spain. That was a colony. That was private trade. That wasn't a zoo. So circuses are unregulated, and they breed. Believe it or not, lions and tigers are quite easy to breed. So circuses, they breed for them, unfortunately. It's cheaper not to let them breed and sell the cub than it is to get the female neutered. So they just sell the breed. And then once it's in the private trade,